Our next presenter this evening is Curtis Hunt III, who is a stonemason. Not just any stonemason. Curtis Hunt III is a fourth-generation stonemason of a big family of stonemasons that has been in business for 130 years in San Antonio. And if you've driven around El City, you have seen buildings that his family not only has touched but has built. Their forte is in masonry restorations with projects including the Alamo, the Missions, City Hall, which they have restored twice, and the Bexar County Courthouse. Curtis lives in Elmendorf with his wife Dotty, his wife of 53 years, and his hobby these days is working his cattle out in Charlotte, Texas. Please welcome Curtis Hunt III.
Thank you. Vicki asked me to come down here and say a few things about my family, so I'm going to give it a try. Hit this thing. This is a picture of my father. You'll see pictures of my grandfather and my kids and all of us that worked in the business. It all started in 1880 when my great-grandfather came from Kentucky and came here to San Antonio and started a masonry business. He worked, and actually they hired him to build stone columns for the railroad going out west. He hired some Irishmen, and they did fine, except they couldn't handle the scorpions and the rattlesnakes. That boogered them up a little bit. But then along came my grandfather in 1892, and he became a mason, and then he got married, and then around 1912, he decided he was going to try something. He was working for $1 a day, and he went down to the lumber yard, and a guy wanted a chimney built for a wood stove, and asked him, and he said, well, I'll do it for $4. So my grandfather went and did it, and he did it in one day. So he said, well, this is a way to go. So he started contracting. He got a little slow, though, in around 1917 or so. So he got on a passenger train going out trying to find jobs, and he went all the way out to El Paso. And Pancho Villa had shot up Juarez, so he went over there to see if he could find some work. And he was telling me how this ox cart was dumping sand, and they put lime with it, and he said it was the prettiest mortar he'd ever seen. He wanted to dig in, but they wouldn't hire him. They were only hiring people from Mexico. So he ended up coming back. He jumped on the freight and came on back to San Antonio, and things started picking up for him, and he started doing real well. The fact that he put the fourth floor on City Hall, and then a year later he did the main library downtown, which became Hertzberg's, and now it's Briscoe Westland Art Museum. Meanwhile, my dad was born in 1916. He was, of course, grew up and started being a mason, but he wanted to see the United States, so he hopped a train and hoboed all over the United States, taking his tools and getting off and working for a few weeks, make a little bit of money, and jump back on the trains and travel all around. He was gone about a year. When he got back, he realized he had a little brother that he didn't know about. But anyhow, he went on in business with my grandfather, and they worked together until 1963, when my grandfather retired. And my uncle, the young one, he was a mason also. He got out of Vietnam, so him and my father partnered up, and they worked up until about 1972. Well, then here comes, my brother went into the Navy, but I went ahead, when I got out of school, I told my dad I didn't want to be a mason. So I worked in the oil fields, and I hit an electrical line, and it burned me up pretty good and put me in the hospital. And that's when my dad came to the bed. He was standing at the end of the bed, and he said, okay, son, that's enough of that stuff. When you get out, you're coming to work for me. And it wasn't about an hour later, my aunt came down and she says, holes, you're messing with holes in the ground. What's the matter with you? You need to get on the wall and lay bricks. So I said, well, okay. So I got out and went to apprentice school and then started laying brick. And the more I laid it, the more I loved it. It was so much fun. It was just the greatest thing. I had such a passion for it. I'd work with the guy, sometimes I'd work with another contractor. He had a son my age, and we'd race all day long to who would put the last brick on each course. You didn't want that, but most of the time I got nailed with it. But anyhow, but at the end of the day, we would come down, and we didn't drink beer or nothing. We'd drink Dr. Pepper, but we'd drop the tailgate, and we could look back, and we could see what we had accomplished that day. And it was so gratifying to see all the work that you did. That I just got a passion for it. You can ask my wife. I would actually dream about it at night when I'd go home from work. But then my dad, Him and my uncle broke up, and he wanted to retire, and he did, but he only wanted to keep a small crew of about 7, 8 people. And I was young, and I wanted to whip the world, so I went out on my own in 1978. And then I went about 6 months, and 6 months working with the contractors. But then around 79, I was able to stand on my own and start going and building fireplaces and different buildings all around, additions and things, nothing big. But then we started getting known for our masonry work, and we started putting more and more people on. And you can see some of these pictures of the restoration. That's a before and after. We start getting known real well for our restoration, and it started getting a lot of calls, and especially Texas Historical Commission started believing in us and our abilities and things like that. Then my sons came up and my daughter, and they came to work for me once they got out of high school, and they started doing business and started learning it real well. Even my daughter helped me put a poultice on the Alamo to suck the salts out. And then later on, when we had to dimension a floor, it had to be numbered in dimension. She was real good at it, and she marked all the stone, and we took it up carefully so we could put it back when it came. And later on, my son had a wall there at the Alamo that had to be dismantled, numbered, and got my daughter to do it, and she's real good at that type of work. But as time went on, I was getting older and older, so I decided to retire in 2022, and my oldest son took the business over. My youngest went on his own. He's going out there to whip the world now. And my daughter periodically works for both of them. But I'm enjoying my life right now on my ranch and doing things like that. So that's about the extent of my family and our stonework. We've been fortunate to do a lot of awesome projects. To work on the Alamo was awesome. My favorite project is the Sullivan Carriage at the Botanical Center. That used to sit down next to the light newspaper, and we took it, numbered each stone, and dismantled it and moved it out there and put it back up. I'm very, very proud of that. This is a picture of my crew. They were about half drunk. We were at a Christmas party, but at least we got all together. One thing of a personal note that I want to say on becoming a senior citizen here, it's some advice that I need to give all you seniors out there, that what's going to happen to you as you get, become seniors and everything else, you're going to realize something that a man told me, and this is something you seniors really need to realize, that if you don't go first class, your kids will. So remember that. Yeah. So if you want that Corvette or that lake house, go get it.
Thank you for building our beautiful city so much. I have some bad news for you, though.
Uh-oh, what's that?
Well, the bad news is, I'm just a poet, and you work with big things, but if we play rock, paper, scissors, I win every time.
Okay. Oh, seen these Barney bubbles, okay? They're a little big on you.
I was going to ask you, just, what's the difference between working cattle and working stone?
Well, they're not as heavy because you can just walk them. That's the biggest thing I can say. That, and now you got to assemble it and stuff. It's just now in my part of life, I really enjoy working the cattle.
I was going to say they're warmer.
Yeah. Then you planting hay and riding the tractors is really, really what I love to do now. So I still have architects call every now and then, want some advice, and it's still nice to have that done.
So what if the next generation of Hunts wants to be like pastry chefs or something? What do we do then?
Well, I don't know. I'm going to hit them in the head with a donut if you want to do that. I needed to carry on, so we'll see. I've got one grandson. He's in the Navy.
Yeah.
Hopefully my son will bring him in.
Yeah,
so
bring him in.
Yeah, it'd be nice.
Well, thank you so much for your work and for being here tonight.